One of the most exciting things in tennis is the arrival of a new talent. These talents are usually raw, unrefined, and obviously lacking in experience, which makes it all the more interesting to make predictions about the future. In most cases, what usually attracts us to these players are their big serves, huge ground strokes, and insane athleticism. But what happens when a player's serve is underpowered and the ground strokes don't have as much firepower? Is it possible to still label them a blue-chip prospect? After being blown away by João Fonseca's raw talent the past few weeks, I broke down his game in a dedicated video. But the overwhelming majority of the comments in that video were not about Fonseca himself, but about another player, Learner Tien. Learner Tien doesn't fit the typical mold of young American players, nor is his game all that flashy. But after doing a little digging and breaking down his game, I now have a different opinion about Learner Tien, and let me tell you, it's not going to be easy for anyone who has to face him. So after reaching the second week of the Australian Open, Learner Tien all but confirmed his spot among the crop of next-gen players who are taking over the sport. Last week, Tien became the youngest American male to make the third round since Sampras at the 1990 US Open, and the youngest player to reach the Australian Open round of 16 since Rafa Nadal in 2005. Tien also got his first top 10 win after beating Medvedev in the second round and smashed a few more milestones en route to the fourth round. Yet for some reason, he didn't seem to get as much hype as João Fonseca, who actually crashed out in the second round. Why is that though? To find some answers, we need to break down Tien's game. We can label Tien's ground strokes as simple and functionally accurate shots with nothing too much going on. The forehand is basically your typical modern forehand. Tien has a relatively longer backswing and a limited wrist action that allows him to flatten out balls when he needs to. The setup for the inside-out forehand is as good as it gets. And Learner incorporates the full unit turn, making use of the rotational force of his upper body and strength from his lower legs to hit the forehand as hard as he can. Now let's be clear here. Tien's forehand is not as explosive as the likes of Alcaraz, Sinner, or even some of the younger guys like João Fonseca. But that doesn't mean he can't hit a lot of winners like some people think. First, Tien uses his lefty advantage to great effect. The cross-court forehand is a thing of beauty, and when hit with a lot of power, it can instantly put the right-handed players on the defense as they have to go for a stretch backhand or slice to return. And as we've already established, the inside-out forehand is deadly. So many times we've seen Tien going for the cross-court forehand followed by an inside-out or forehand down the line to pick opponents apart. He did this a number of times against Medvedev, and the results were amazing. Here, take a look. Can Learner's forehand be exploited when rushed? Yes, but so is the case with some other top ATP players too. Seeing Learner's precision from the forecourt and his ability to spread the play around tells you just how smart he is. Essentially, Learner hits every shot with intent, and he uses the entire width of the court to his advantage, rather than simply hitting neutral balls down the middle. Learner's backhand is also fundamentally sound, and he strikes the ball cleanly. You'd be hard-pressed to find any significant technical flaws with the shot. Like the forehand, the balls stay really low and have some pretty low margins over the net. Taking a look at the stroke production itself, it's compact, solid, and he's able to generate lots of pace and consistent depth off the shot. But more importantly, Tien is comfortable absorbing pace. To me, one of the most incredible things Tien does off the backhand is how he constantly changes the pace of a rally with the slice. This strategy worked to perfection against Daniil Medvedev. Keeping the balls low rather than waist level in his strike zone is the way to play him. The low balls are more difficult for Daniil, who finds it difficult to generate lots of pace from a low contact point. Moving on to the return, the best thing about Learner is his tactical flexibility. Guys, let me clarify. Learner is not a pusher like some fans think. Rather, he has great counterpunching skills that have paid dividends for smaller players like Alex de Minaur and Kei Nishikori. He knows when to adjust his return position to enable him to take giant cuts at the ball and give him a chance in the rally. And here's another instance. And on the opposite end of the spectrum, Tien knows when to step into the court, either to punish weak second serves or effectively cut out wide serves. Tien was actually in the top 10 for percentage of return points won, excluding aces and double faults on the Challenger Tour last year. Somewhat impressive, right? However, when we narrowed in on the percentage of second serve points won in the last 52 weeks, only 2 players did a better job than Tien on the Challenger Tour. Why is Learner Tien so good on the return again? I'll tell you. Given his natural ability to absorb pace and redirect balls quite easily, Tien has demonstrated his ability to be excellent on the return, and he was a defensive nightmare for Medvedev. Like I said in my recap of the first week of the Australian Open, one of Lerner's greatest qualities will always be his rally tolerance. On the return, Learner can generate depth and switch his return stance, and from the look of things, he also has the fitness to get back to his style of play. Learner runs the gamut on what it means to be a great returner, and don't even get me started on the variety he brings with him. Tien played 2 drastically different players in Medvedev and Corentin Moutet at the Australian Open. He went toe-to-toe with Medi on those long 20 or more shot rallies, and was also ready for Moutet's comically variable all-court tennis. Tien's footwork and athleticism is also really good. He has the quick twitch athleticism and fluidity that allows for sudden change of direction, and he looks comfortable sliding into shots off both wings. Tactically speaking, Tien has a good handle on the game, and in a way, he somewhat reminds me of how Andy Murray worked his way into points by using lots of variety. Tien's game is all about changing pace, floating balls deep to the backcourt, and then suddenly attacking with a flatter ball. Patient and methodical in extended rallies, Learner slowly works opponents from corner to corner in a sort of slow kill method. He just refuses to miss. The slices, the placement, acute angles, spins, lobs, the sudden injections of pace, it's mind-boggling that a 19-year-old manages to do all this. Many players have that knockout power, which might be more attractive and is probably one of the reasons why Fonseca gets more hype than Tien. However, it goes without saying that you can be just as good without those massive weapons. The closest comparison that comes to mind is watching Alexander Usyk in boxing. He doesn't have the biggest frame or knockout power of an Anthony Joshua or Tyson Fury, but he still beat both guys who were significantly bigger and stronger than him. Oh, and he did this not once, but twice to become the undisputed champion in boxing. Back to the tennis context, in a game dominated by power hitters, it's always refreshing to see how players like Tien manage to dominate with a high tennis IQ. Learner Tien is really good, and while this may seem obvious, it turns out he's even better than I thought. Well, except in one area though. Tien doesn't have a big serve, and that's putting it lightly. I'd even say his serve is underpowered. I tracked all 7 of Tien's matches at the Australian Open, including qualifiers and main draw, and here's what I found. Not once did Learner Tien serve above 124 miles per hour. But not just that. Tien's tournament average for average first serve speed was only 104 miles per hour, which is as much as 15 to 20 miles per hour short of many of the top players. Taking a closer look at the table, and you'll observe a few more anomalies. Looking at the percentage of first serves in, apart from the Medvedev match, Tien wasn't getting many first serves in. Although he made up for that by winning a respectable percentage when the first serves did go in, the whole point of this table is to emphasize how underpowered Tien's serve really is. The average percentage of first serve in among top 50 players is 63%, so there's clearly some work to be done in that area. You could take solace in the fact that Tien's swinging lefty serve is sometimes accurate and sliding, but the truth is that without enough power, you're still giving the opposition a chance to get to your serve. As we all know, power, placement, and variety are the components that make up a great serve. When the power element is taken out of the equation, it leaves players at a significant disadvantage. Learner Tien is only 5 feet 11 inches tall, and he still has time to fill out physically and get stronger. More importantly, with more experience, he'll learn how to use his entire body to generate more power on the serve. As we've also come to know, Tien has learned how to use the lefty serve, alternatively forcing opponents far out wide and sticking them with uncomfortable body serves when he catches them leaning left for the slider. However, there's still a lot of work to be done. Now, another area of improvement for Tien would be refining his finishing skills at the net and taking his transition game a notch higher. Guys, if you want to follow Learner's rise up the ranks, then you definitely want to subscribe to our newsletter. We cover the latest happenings from around the ATP and WTA tours, and also dish out some pretty fire hot takes. I'll leave the link for you down below. At the moment, there aren't too many precedents for Learner, and it's a bit hard to compare him with some of the other lefties. Shelton is 6'4", has a live arm, and is capable of hitting above 145 miles per hour on the serve, and his all-out attack style is drastically different from his compatriot. We have Adrian Mannarino, who's a similar height to Lerner and is even a former top 20 player. But Mannarino's unorthodox playing style and his loose string tension are some things that would be really difficult for anyone to replicate. We also have Cam Norrie, who features a heavy topspin forehand and a flat backhand with an extremely short takeback. Again, not quite a comparable for Lerner's game. At 19 years old, Lerner has already smashed milestones that took his fellow lefties much longer to reach. Being relatively short and a lefty often poses transition hurdles from the Challenger Tour to the main tour, but with Tien, there's every reason to believe that he'll break that mold. It all comes down to his mentality. In addition to his already impressive skill set, Learner Tien has the right mentality to succeed. We witnessed his ability to stay calm in the biggest moments at the Australian Open. Tien was incredibly composed and almost never displayed any negative emotion, even when he was injured against Lorenzo Sonego in the 4th round. Having blown a 2-0 lead against Medvedev in the 2nd round, any player of Lerner's age would have panicked in the 5th set tiebreak, but not Lerner. He remained calm throughout. We often see young players get a little too excited during rallies, deciding to go for the low percentage highlight reel when they clearly have a better option at their disposal. Not with Lerner though. His composure and decision-making are impressive to say the least. For many fans, it's not just tennis alone that attracts them to Lerner, it's also his personal story. Tien was born in Irvine, California, to parents who thought of themselves as Chinese living in Vietnam back in the day. Both of his parents came to the US in search of greener pastures. Lerner's unique name was inspired by his mother's profession as a math teacher, while his sister is named Justice, a tribute to their father's profession as a real estate lawyer. It's a unique naming system seen in Vietnamese, East Asian, and in some other cultures where kids' names are inspired by their parents' personal experiences, values, or professions. Tien started playing tennis as a toddler and had a successful junior career, compiling a 76-23 record, 2 Grand Slam finals in singles, and a career-high world number 4 ranking. At age 16, Tien also won the USTA Boys 18s National Championships, which earned him a spot in the main draw of the 2022 US Open. Although he lost in the 1st round at the main draw of the 2022, 2023, and 2024 editions of the US Open, Lerner's achievements at the lower levels were nothing short of impressive. 7 ITF titles and 3 Challenger trophies, all coming on home soil. He began the 2024 season outside the top 450 and finished with a 35-9 Challenger match record. Fast forward a year later, and Learner Tien is set to make his top 80 debut. But wait a minute. If Tien has all these qualities and is even making quick inroads on the main tour, then why isn't he getting as much hype as Fonseca? For starters, we already established the fact that the qualities of Fonseca's ball striking and his attacking brand of tennis are always going to be more eye-catching than Lerner's stoic composure from the baseline. It's plain to see that Fonseca's insane power and explosiveness are drastically different from Tien's counterpunching skills. We've witnessed both players go toe-to-toe twice at the ATP Next Gen Finals, with Fonseca actually beating Tien twice, in the group stage and again in the final. Fonseca also beat Tien in the 2023 US Open Juniors final, with Tien's only win coming at the French Open Juniors quarterfinal. With Fonseca being a year younger than Tien, it's easy to see why he gets more hype. At 18, Fonseca's already become #1 in juniors, the 2nd youngest ATP Next Gen champion, and he also holds a couple of other youngest ever records. Do I think Fonseca deserves the hype even after falling out in the 2nd round of the Australian Open? 100%. But do I also think that Learner Tien is someone to watch out for? Yes, it shouldn't even be a topic of discussion. You could even argue that not getting as much hype might end up working out for Lerner, since he'd be having some of the pressure and weight of expectation off his shoulders while he focuses on making the bigger moves in silence. But as far as future projections go, it gets a little tougher. Without a bigger first strike weapon, there's the possibility that Lerner struggles in certain matchups against those with elite firepower. But that said, we've also seen him withstand the firepower from his fellow teenager Jakub Menchik and Artur Fils at the Next Gen Finals. I expect Lerner to become a more well-rounded baseliner, but would it be enough against someone who has the ability to blast him off the court? I'm sure Lerner and his coach Eric Diaz will be working on how to deal with those things. From what I've seen so far though, one of the best things about Lerner's game and his potential is that he has a really high floor. At the very least, you can expect some solid baseline consistency compared to the up and down performances we're used to seeing from some of the more aggressive players. How far can Learner go? It's always a tough one to call out, especially when a player is in such an early stage of their career, but just going off of what I've seen, I'd have to say at this point, maybe his ceiling is top 20. Though that could change if he adds a little bit more pop on his serve and ground strokes. But over to you guys. What do you think of Learner Tien, and what do you think his ceiling is? I'm looking forward to reading your comments.